I remember those 2 days, June 7th and 8th, for years ago, when I took my SATs. My parents didn't come to see me off. They had returned to our hometown for my great-grandfather's funeral. But before they left, they made a special call to Mr. Grant, earnestly entrusting me to him. Mr. Grant taught math, but he wasn't our homeroom teacher. The reason my parents chose to entrust me to Mr. Grant must have been because I was always mentioning him at the dinner table. Mr. Grant is a Grandview University, GVU, graduate, a prestigious school, and incredibly handsome. Mr. Grant said I was too careless, that I could even get question number 8 on the fill-in-the-blank section wrong. Today, Mr. Grant solved the last major problem on the practice exam in 4 different ways, while the standard answer only had 2. Mr. Grant. I thought it was all my fault. It was my incessant chatter that made my parents think Mr. Grant liked me, and he must have felt troubled when my parents entrusted me to him. But as a teacher, he couldn't refuse. Alice Carter. Amid the noisy voices around me, I suddenly heard him call my name. The voice was the same as when he lectured, calm and composed, without a trace of emotion. I turned around and saw him standing there, at just the right distance, neither too close nor too far, hands in his pockets, looking down at me with a rare gentle expression. Don't be nervous, just do your best. His tone was slightly lighter, and he added jokingly, just perform normally, and you can get into any of the Ivy League schools. What did I say back then? Oh, right. I really like sycamore trees, I said at the time. I want to go to Grandview University, GVU. The Grandview University, GVU, you once reminisced about in class, the one with 2 rows of golden sycamore trees in front of the library. Mr. Grant was a math teacher who came to our senior year class. During the first class, he didn't even introduce himself. He just handed out the syllabus and started teaching. He never used a textbook in class, only the syllabus. At first, I wasn't used to it and grumbled, holding the thin sheet of paper, "What's this? We're relying on this piece of paper for the entire senior year?" The person in front of me turned around to look at me, grinning mischievously, wanting to tease me, but his expression changed, and he quickly turned back around in dismay. My heart skipped a beat, and I thought, oh no. A slender hand reached over my shoulder and picked up my math book from the upper left corner of my desk, flipping through it casually until it landed on the page with my name. His voice was indifferent and distant when he spoke. Alice Carter, the teacher is trying to relieve your stress, and you're still not happy, huh? After saying that, he walked past me, lightly tapping my head with the math book before he left. The scent of mint-scented hand sanitizer lingered from his fingers that brushed my bangs. I blinked and caught a glimpse of his fair fingertips. That sly fox Mr. Grant was definitely not the kind of teacher who would relieve students' stress. The thin syllabus, which I had underestimated, killed everyone in the class. People started dying from the first question on the first page. Just when we managed to get over that hurdle, there was a new syllabus during the next class. Therefore, we had to concentrate intensely during math class to survive under these few sheets of paper. This question is good, Mr. Grant said, resting both hands on the podium, fingers holding a white chalk, his eyes glancing at me. It's like Jay Bartlett meeting Lily Davis for the first time in the Great Stone Saga. Alice Carter empathizes deeply. She's seen this question before, and seen it a lot. The whole class burst into laughter. Wrong again? He looked at me leisurely, waiting for my response. I was silent for a moment, then covered my forehead and nodded in humility. Asian. The whole class erupted in laughter again. Mr. Grant shifted the focus to someone else in a timely manner, and I relaxed a little. Mr. Grant is too twisted. I muttered softly. He even knows what kind of questions people are likely to get wrong. Perhaps my underestimation of the syllabus on the first day of school had left a deep impression on Mr. Grant because he always thought I hated math. But that wasn't the case. The biggest reason I chose the STEM field was math. What probably changed Mr. Grant's impression of me was that time. There was an example problem on page 14 of the syllabus, asking for the expression of a conic section. He was patiently deriving it step by step from the equation of a circle. Even for Mr. Grant, he couldn't change the fact that the tedious problem-solving process and the hot summer made senior year lack any surprises. At that moment, I was covered in a thin layer of sweat, and a flash of inspiration struck, as if a blessing had arrived. I hesitantly raised my hand and said something that I was proud enough of for my entire senior year. Mr. Grant, this approach is too cumbersome. The whole class turned to look at me, not as a top student, but as a warrior, as if saying, Alice Carter, you're the first person to dare question Mr. Grant. Mr. Grant's reaction wasn't as enthusiastic as the onlookers. He simply said, oh? Then you solve it. I didn't stand on ceremony and bravely went up to the board with the chalk. Mr. Grant had used 2 blackboards and still hadn't finished solving the problem. I changed to a tricky shortcut and finished writing it in half a blackboard. 2 distinct fonts were closely juxtaposed, one casual and the other delicate. The only incongruity was that my delicate in conclusion was written in his usual regular script, clearly imitating his handwriting. A hint of amazement flashed across his face, followed by an extremely brief smile, not the satisfaction of a teacher seeing a student's academic achievement, but a very direct appreciation. Mr. Grant said, not bad, Alice Carter, quick-witted. Standing on the podium with him, so close to him, I saw the change in his expression, and I was sure that only I had seen it. For no reason, I thought of the minty scent of hand sanitizer on his fingertips that day, and suddenly the summer felt cool and refreshing, so comfortable that I wanted to drown in that moment. My heart and blood vessels were busy with a thump-thump of a little deer running wild, and I didn't think carefully about what strange and complex emotions had drawn me into this silent turmoil. Looking back, perhaps it was because of this look that I realized that Mr. Grant was different from others. It was a kind of appreciation that could only be generated for an independent individual, especially the respect and appreciation from a teacher, which was of great significance to a senior year student who had always been considered a learning machine. In that instant, I deeply felt the sweet taste of being respected and even completely fell in love with math. But math was so restrained and profound, and a senior year student was so superficial and immature that my self-righteous love only stayed with the spokesperson of math, who was Mr. Grant. After that, I worked hard and became obsessed with all kinds of math problems, in a state of no regrets even if I grew thinner from lovesickness. When the results of the mock SAT came out, I unexpectedly got the first place in the city in math. Overjoyed, I patted my chest and boasted to the whole class, Alice Carter, Mr. Grant's proud disciple. The name Mr. Grant's proud disciple spread like wildfire. Later, even the English teacher jokingly mentioned during class, now, let's have Mr. Grant's proud disciple explain why the answer to this blank is C. It was then that I realized that the entire teacher's office probably knew about my bold statement. Although I bravely admitted it at the time, I was actually shy, flustered, and a little resentful, especially because Mr. Grant didn't show any reaction. Mr. Grant did show a reaction, and it was a subtle but unquestionable one. As my math skills soared, Mr. Grant not only silently accepted my self-proclaimed proud disciple, but also seemed to be treating me as his right-hand man. Once, after gym class, I was walking back to the classroom and passed another class that Mr. Grant taught, and he beckoned me in. What's wrong, teacher? I walked in casually at the time, blinking at him. He didn't look too good at first, but his expression softened when he saw me. He handed me the white chalk and pointed to a question on the PPT. Come and do this question, I can't bring myself to explain it. He sighed, seemingly very annoyed by the students in that class. I tactfully didn't ask any more questions, took the white chalk, and wrote and explained with flourish. Mr. Grant leaned against the window, looking out at the playground, seemingly not caring about the progress here, leaving us with a handsome profile. I glanced at his profile and was momentarily distracted. I got stuck when I was explaining the eccentricity formula. He turned his head to meet my eyes, as if to scold me, but finally gave up, shaking his head helplessly, and walked to the podium, flipping through his syllabus to a certain page and handing it to me. It was his beautiful regular script, Even the numbers and letters were beautiful. I immediately spotted the formula and continued to explain it smoothly, as if I had never been stuck. Later, many people from the neighboring class came to inquire about me, but I didn't take it to heart. In my opinion, I wasn't explaining the questions to them, but showing Mr. Grant how capable his proud disciple was, and he clearly realized this. Later, when he was tired, he would pull me up to explain the questions, and sometimes when he couldn't finish grading the papers, he would pull me to the office to do hard labor. It wasn't hard at all. How could it be hard to lie on Mr. Grant's desk and quietly do the same things with him? In a word, Mr. Grant spoiled his beloved disciple. Recalling the things that happened in high school, the memories that should have been faded seemed still vivid, with ardent hope, subtle madness, and pure innocence. Compared to that, my current life is as boring as a stagnant pool. Staring at the exquisite invitation in my hand, I thought that the story was not bad if it had developed to this point. I was an excellent student, envied by my classmates and appreciated by my teachers. I was admitted to my dream university from my alma mater, and my youth had no regrets and was full of splendor. But things don't always go as planned. Happiness and joy are vague, but pain is always unforgettable. When I was no longer the reckless girl I used to be, as I gradually grew up, I naturally understood some truths. For example, what people can engrave in their minds is only regret, especially in matters of love. In many people's eyes, Mr. Grant's beloved disciple was extremely arrogant. Mr. Grant's intentional or unintentional favor also slowly established my position. I occasionally watched Korean dramas, and there was a popular saying at that time called "To wear the crown, you must bear the weight." Looking back now, it seems a bit pretentious to use this saying on a student, but I deeply empathized with it at the time. Mr. Grant's affirmation and Mr. Grant's honors were all my crowns. I had to consolidate my foundation and at least maintain the first place in the city in math. To be honest, I was indeed too arrogant at the time. I wasn't afraid of others' sarcasm and jealousy, nor did I disdain the adage, "If a tree stands out in the forest, the wind will surely destroy it." The wind couldn't destroy this tree of mine. I trusted Mr. Grant 100%. As long as Mr. Grant was there, he would definitely protect me, and I did. And have to face these things. My obsession with math reached a point where I remember once during a math test I was too tired, so I glanced at the last question and fell asleep. Before closing my eyes, I saw Mr. Grant smiling at me. He saw me sleeping and didn't wake me up, which made me a little upset. I thought, I'll deal with you after I rest for a while. Sure enough, after I woke up, my thoughts flowed like a spring, and I wrote down the answer while yawning. Just as General Chow killed people in his dreams in ancient times, Alice Carter solved problems while sleeping today. In terms of learning, the amount of effort you put in is directly proportional to the amount of reward you get. There is nothing more cost-effective in this world than learning. In most things, the rewards are far less than the efforts, or even non-existent. But at this time, the effort was effective, and very effective. In my senior year, until the end of the SATs, math was still number one. But because I worked too hard in math, I inevitably fell behind in other subjects. When I was being dragged by the physics teacher to the office to do my homework, I lay on Mr. Grant's desk while he was teaching evening self-study in the neighboring class. Speaking of which, physics and math are not that different. On closer inspection, physics is more in line with my personality. Physics is flexible, while math requires a more meticulous logical process and extreme patience. But unfortunately, the physics teacher was bald, and Mr. Grant's appearance was off the charts. I had already made my choice at that time. You students all like math, your minds are full of math during physics class, the physics teacher said gleefully while holding his thermos and watching me do my homework. No matter what mind-altering drugs little Grant fed you, you still have to do physics obediently now. I looked up and gave him a forced smile, then continued to do my homework. The physics teacher said with great emotion, "Actually, when I was young, I was as handsome as little Grant is now. Now that I'm old, you kids are rushing to become his beloved disciples, leaving me all alone. I continued to bury myself in my work, pretending not to understand. Unexpectedly, the office door was pushed open. It was the 8th day of the second lunar month, and a cold wind blew in through the crack in the door, making me shiver. I couldn't help but look up and saw Mr. Grant coming in, wearing a coat and a gray scarf, with a pile of papers in his arm and a thin layer of snow on his glasses. However, no matter what his posture, he was devastatingly handsome. When Mr. Grant saw me occupying his desk, he pursed his lips as if he was about to get angry, but in the end, he resigned himself to his fate as usual. "Alice Carter, you're so bold." I gave him the brightest smile I could muster. The physics teacher said with a chuckle, "Yes, how can you do physics homework on the math teacher's desk? You're not giving your Mr. Grant any face. Little Grant, go ahead and scold her." I turned to look at the physics teacher, feeling very wronged. It was clearly you who wanted me to do it, and you who wanted me to use the desk. Otherwise, where would I get the courage to approach Mr. Grant's desk for no reason? This is the place in the whole school that is closest to him. Usually, I only look bold, but in reality, I'm cowardly and afraid. Of course, Mr. Grant wouldn't be angry with his beloved disciple. He smiled and didn't say anything, stepped aside, and a girl came in, probably from the neighboring class. He frowned and turned to her, saying, "Stop complaining. You happen to have someone to keep you company. Go, sit over there and finish correcting today's papers before you leave." She was very unwilling with a drooping face. Mr. Grant rubbed his forehead, seemingly feeling a headache with students like her. "I've already brought you to the office to enjoy the air-conditioning. What else do you want?" "I want to go home," the girl said stubbornly. Mr. Grant's face turned cold. "No way." I stared at them curiously, but the bald teacher thwacked me on the head, so I lowered my head to continue doing physics homework, feeling wronged. That girl looked even more wronged than I did, and her smile was uglier than crying. She walked to my side reluctantly, so I made room for her, and we started doing homework on Mr. Grant's desk together. She did math, and I did physics. Later, I learned that she wasn't a bad student at all. On the contrary, she was quite excellent. She was the physics representative of the neighboring class, and the opposite of me, she almost hated math. At this moment, the two of us perfectly complemented each other. After exchanging glances for a while, we developed a sense of mutual appreciation. After understanding each other's homework, we quickly exchanged it. I helped her correct math, and she helped me do physics homework. With the division of labor and cooperation, the efficiency of both sides was greatly improved. Of course, we both used pencils, and then wrote our own answers separately to avoid the two teachers seeing through our trick through the handwriting. I admired her quick and accurate physics thinking, and she admired my unconventional math thinking. So, after meeting in the office for a week in a row, she and I finally became good friends. Oh, right, her name is Sophia Evans. Sophia Evans and I had perfectly overlapping hobbies. We both liked to watch anime and Korean dramas. Not only that, but she would occasionally recommend Hegel to me, and I would casually discuss Schopenhauer with her. It was rare for two STEM field girls to both like philosophy. The only difference was that I worshipped Mr. Grant to death and couldn't bring myself to love the bald physics teacher, while she deeply respected the bald teacher and avoided the handsome type like little Grant. We would go to the library to do homework together on weekends, and when we got together to chat, we would discuss everything from which celebrity was handsome to whether Marcuse belonged to the radical faction. But the most common things we talked about were the interesting things between us and our teachers. She was amused to hear about how the bald physics teacher teased and tormented me, and I found it cute and couldn't help but laugh when Mr. Grant deliberately caught her and asked her questions in class, and she was so angry that she pursed her lips and snorted. Sophia Evans and I were the best of friends. Although we had only known each other for a short time, that couldn't change our friendship at first sight. When our feelings were strong, we even seriously discussed whether we could marry each other in the future. Sophia Evans knew all my secrets, but not the fact that I liked Mr. Grant. She never asked, probably thinking that my feelings for Mr. Grant were the same as her feelings for the physics teacher, just pure respect. But how was that possible? How could I bear to just admire Mr. Grant? So, in the week when the second mock SAT scores came out, Sophia Evans held up my perfect math paper with trembling hands and cried, "Alice Carter, let me follow you. What made you conquer the little math fairy? Mr. Grant's beloved disciple, the title adds 100 points to your IQ." I said to her with a smile, "Mr. Grant's spirit is with me in the exam room." Damn it. Sophia Evans was very upset. Then why isn't my physics perfect? In fact, there were no perfect scores in physics in our school. Sophia Evans was already one of the best, but there were two other perfect scores in math besides me. I didn't pay attention to what was happening in other schools. After all, the feelings we have for our teachers are different. I patted her shoulder and comforted her. My feelings for Mr. Grant are definitely not comparable to your feelings for the bald teacher. Sophie. Evans snorted, "What's your basis? Why are you doubting my and the bald teacher's teacher-student relationship?" Basis, huh? Because, as soon as the topic was opened, I felt my face starting to burn. Just thinking about it was enough to make my blood boil. I had prepared myself, but I still couldn't muster the courage to say it, even if the other person was Sophia Evans, my friend, and our conversation would definitely not be passed on to a third person. It was then that I realized that I was really too timid. Sophia Evans usually said that she could easily provoke Mr. Grant to roll his eyes, but Mr. Grant was always gentle as jade in front of us. Sophia Evans advised me to be bolder, that being too restrained would create a sense of distance from the teacher, but I didn't learn any of these good words. Sophia Evans stared at me, tilting her head in confusion. She was running out of patience. I also thought that if the person in front of me was Mr. Grant, and one day I was ready to tell him this sentence, then he would definitely be even more impatient. After all, senior year was so tight, and he never waited for anyone. As his beloved disciple, I was of course the one who knew him best. In the end, I mustered up the courage, lowered my head, and leaned over. Sophia Evans also leaned over cooperatively, turning her body to the side and actively bringing her ear to my mouth. My voice was very small, not as loud as my heartbeat, and I couldn't even hear my own voice clearly, but Sophia Evans must have heard it. Because she suddenly turned her head to look at me, her almond eyes wide open, clearly shocked and beyond redemption. I pretended to be calm and leaned back, saying, "Well, your eyelashes are very long, and your eyes are also very beautiful." Sophia Evans was stunned unusually, unable to respond to my teasing for a long time, and her eyes flashed with complex emotions, vaguely with some disappointment. I only thought that she was shocked by my rebellious thoughts. "Don't worry," I comforted her jokingly, "you are still the only one in my heart, and Mr. Grant can't shake your position." Sophia Evans forced a smile, lowered her head, and didn't know what she was thinking. She sat back in her seat, and after a moment, she tore off a page of draft paper, which still had the sign formula I had just written for her on it, and then she wrote another line of words under it and handed it to me. "Are you serious?" Sophia Evans's handwriting was very beautiful. Her penmanship had won awards in the city. Of course, my handwriting was relatively childish. Thinking of Mr. Grant, I added another sentence. "I think Mr. Grant's handwriting is also very beautiful, even more beautiful than yours." Sophia Evans sat across from me, originally worried, but was amused by my reply. The setting sun shone in from the window, giving her a beautiful halo. She looked so gentle. Sophia Evans's worried eyes fell on me and finally turned into helplessness. This change of expression reminded me of Mr. Grant, who often looked at me like that. She mouthed to me, "I promise, I will never tell anyone." Sophia Evans perfectly kept her promise. She never let me down. My feelings for Mr. Grant were exposed entirely due to my own actions. After talking with Sophia Evans, I often had dreams, dreaming that the person sitting across from me that afternoon was not Sophia Evans, but Mr. Grant. He was consistently indifferent, and I had the same dream for a week in a row, and I couldn't say it every time. Even like that time, quietly leaning over to whisper, I couldn't do it. As things developed to the end, I was a little afraid of sleeping and gradually began to suffer from insomnia. The second mock SAT was over, and the SATs were imminent. My mental state was getting worse day by day, and it was common for me to doze off in class. In fact, at this point, everyone's level had already been determined. Even if I slept in class every day in the last 100 days, I wouldn't necessarily regress much, not to mention that my grades hadn't regressed, and even with Sophia Evans's help, my only weakness, physics, was slowly improving. Following solving problems while sleeping, I had another legend of studying while sleeping. The classmates' teasing was just teasing, but everyone knew that the reason why my grades could stay stable even if I slept in class was only because I used the time I used to sleep to study. They didn't care, the teachers didn't care, and my parents didn't care. I was good at covering up problems, so no one knew that my mental state was getting worse and worse because of this worry. With a poor mental state, how could my studies be stable? Based on this assumption, no one asked me what was going on, as if academic performance was an indicator of my everything. Sometimes I felt that adults were too easy to fool, but when I thought about it carefully, I felt wronged again. But these people who were easy to fool didn't include Mr. Grant. I had actually expected Mr. Grant to notice that something was wrong with me. The reason for this was still the smile he gave me when he praised me for being quick-witted last semester. I was so sure that Mr. Grant didn't treat me as a student who must rush to the SATs, or rather, he treated me more as an independent individual, a person with my own independent emotions. Or maybe I just unconsciously let down my guard in front of Mr. Grant. Or maybe I wanted him to know that I was not doing well now. The school carnival had a half-day holiday, and the school would hold a charity sale, including senior year students could also enjoy the holiday and participate in it. This extra half-day holiday made everyone remember the school's birthday firmly. While everyone was packing up, I was too sleepy to open my eyes and fell asleep on a pile of papers. I was sitting by the window near the corridor. Before closing my eyes, I saw Mr. Grant standing outside, looking down at me with raised eyebrows, his eyes full of exploration, as if he wanted to watch me perform a die on the spot. I forced a smile at him, and in the end, I really did die on the spot. I thought this was embarrassing and subconsciously treated it as a dream anyway. It wasn't the first time I had dreamed of Mr. Grant. When I woke up, I didn't know how long I had slept. I took out a tissue to wipe my saliva and saw a line of words on the tissue, written in regular script, by Mr. Grant. Rest well, you've been too tired lately. I was stunned. Then I suddenly stood up and looked around for my treasure box to hide it, but when I reached for the bottom of the desk, I remembered that my treasure box was always at home. I was really confused from sleeping. I put it in the palm of my hand and looked at it carefully, and then I realized that there was a signature below that line of words. My heart felt like it had been smeared with honey. Actually, he didn't need to sign it at all. I recognized his handwriting. My pen was on the windowsill, and its position was very subtle, as if someone had used it outside and put it down casually. So I understood that the scene just now was not a dream, and I was immediately embarrassed and shy. Whether it was a dream or not, I accepted it wholeheartedly at this moment, full of joy. No matter how embarrassing it was, excitement completely replaced other thoughts. After all, Mr. Grant took the initiative to care about me. This was a huge breakthrough that had never happened before. It was at that moment that I made a decision. This tissue didn't need to be put in the treasure box. The things I couldn't say in person, maybe it could say it for me. I wrote line after line of my thoughts on that tissue, clipped it in a workbook, and handed it in, hoping that Mr. Grant would know my heart. It was really just that simple, and I never hoped to go any further. In fact, even if we could go any further, it shouldn't be me alone who considered it. When I was young, I was too reckless and never thought about how troubled he would be as a teacher. Looking back, I wasn't as considerate as Sophia Evans. The next day, I skipped school. It was rare for my parents to help me get an excused absence, and the exhaustion I'd been masking for so long finally surfaced. They noticed I was indeed too stressed, so they let me rest at home. I didn't know what happened afterward, and I didn't want to think about Mr. Grant's response. Perhaps subconsciously, I thought I had done something wrong, so I instinctively wanted to escape, to avoid reliving that day. I didn't go back to school until the third day after the school carnival. Classmates asked with concern about my health, and teachers would offer a few words. Sophia Evans even used the excuse of going to the restroom to sneak into our class and check if I was okay. Everything was back on track, seemingly unchanged. But it wasn't. Mr. Grant, he had distanced himself from his beloved student. It happened so naturally, so subtly, that I'm sure I was the only one who noticed, just like the initial admiring smile, I'm certain only I knew about it. It was an earth-shattering normalcy, from nothing to something, from something to nothing, appearing with fanfare, disappearing with a bang, all my own emotions, unrelated to anyone else, not even a second person. My inner turmoil was like a whale slaughtering a school of fish in the deep sea, while the surface remained as peaceful as ever. My grades, the indicator of my overall condition, remained unaffected. This time, I felt like the adults were truly easy to fool, Mr. Grant included. As senior year drew to a close, Mr. Grant finished all the review plans on his syllabus. With 15 minutes of class left, he paused as he put down the syllabus, his tall figure faltering for a moment. The surroundings slowly quieted down. He turned around, scanning the entire class. Before his gaze landed on me, I lowered my head, clearly feeling his eyes linger for a second before moving away. Then, he began to speak. "I've covered everything I can," he said, his fingers still dusted with white chalk. He took out a wet wipe from his pocket and cleaned his fingers, his face calm, devoid of joy or sorrow. "Your senior year is coming to an end as well." The sudden shift in topic caught everyone off guard. "Ending means parting," he smiled faintly. "I've taught 4 graduating classes, and you are the most outstanding, the one I've put the most effort into, and naturally, the one I've invested the most emotion in." I lowered my head, my heart feeling like it was being gripped and pricked with tiny needles. His pace slowed, as if he was tired. "After teaching this class, I'll go back to teaching freshmen. I don't know if I'll ever meet students like you again, smart, bold, lively, full of energy, and full of hope." The class fell silent, a silence unlike his usual class silence. There was no sound of rustling papers, no sound of pens dropping, no sound of hushed discussions. Only Mr. Grant was speaking, with no noticeable intonation, yet brimming with emotions I couldn't describe, both deep and vast, beyond my comprehension. Mr. Grant was a good teacher, we all thought so. No one in the class had ever spoken ill of Mr. Grant. His dedication was evident to everyone. It was also at that moment that I clearly realized that Mr. Grant was truly a good teacher. From beginning to end, he never forgot to guide me down the right path. He said, "When I first went to college, I got lost on campus. I walked past dormitories where I couldn't distinguish north from south, and finally, I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I saw a different place, a large square with 2 rows of sycamore trees planted on both sides, golden leaves covering the ground. I looked up and saw the 3 big words, library. I hope you will be the same. In the future, or now, no matter what you experience, after confusion, you can see beautiful sycamore trees and the library, whether it's learning knowledge, learning about life, or learning to love, it's all learning." He said these words while looking at me, his eyes gentle, still with the same admiration, as if I was still the beloved student he doted on. Yes, a beloved student, a student. I felt something settle in my heart, and yet something was forever severed. The 2 complex flavors clashed, mixed with the atmosphere of senior year farewells. I lowered my head and began to shed tears. My left eye was for my spirited self, and my right eye was for the unattainable him. Later, I went to Grandview University, GVU, and learned that Grandview University, GVU, was full of sycamore trees. Mr. Grant was confused in the dormitories where he couldn't distinguish north from south, and when it was my turn, I was confused in the golden sycamore trees. Sycamore trees were everywhere. Where were the sycamore trees he saw? My high school came to an end, and my college life began in full swing. The new stage also had new feelings and new encounters. I remained single, not because I didn't want to date, but because I felt I no longer had the courage to say the word like. Gradually, I lost contact with my past friends. The last I heard of Sophia Evans was that she had been admitted to a normal university, saying that she would return to our alma mater to be a teacher after graduation. I thought it would be physics, but she said shyly that it was math. My heart was filled with another burst of piercing pain. When I talked about high school again, it seemed like I could slowly let go of the regrets of the past, as if everything had an answer. I could already laugh and summarize my past infatuation and create a perfect ending for that unrequited love. Teachers and students are, after all, just teachers and students. Where is there so much romance? Everything from that time was still lying dormant in my treasure box until I received Sophia Evans's wedding invitation. The subway doors opened, my final stop. I stood up, my expression calm. I used to be good at hiding my emotions, and now I've reached the pinnacle of skill. Groom, Grant Zimmer, bride, Sophia Evans. Wedding theme, I think, therefore I am, Grant. At the school carnival of senior year, I fell asleep on my desk. When I woke up, I wanted to use a tissue to wipe the drool from my mouth, but I saw a line of beautiful regular script on it, reading, "Rest well, you've been too tired lately," and below it was a clear signature, Grant Zimmer. Romance belonged to others, I had nothing. Old wounds and new pain tasted different. I thought the beginning and the end stemmed from the words "beloved student," but the invitation told me that wasn't the case. Mr. Grant was a good teacher, but that didn't mean he wasn't a good lover. There were many reasons for rejection, but only one reason for falling in love, which was simply to truly love her. If love is separated by mountains and seas can be leveled. He could also disregard everything, just for the person he liked. He wasn't just restrained, he also had passion. The reason I didn't know that side of him was simply because the person worth him doing all of this for wasn't me. And my self-righteous beginning and end were just a farce. Mr. Grant said that when you get lost to the end, you'll see beautiful sycamore trees. But I was constantly going back and forth in the sycamore trees, probably trapped in them forever. This golden, vast expanse was full of dazzling beauty, trapping me and preventing me from escaping. The taste of it was like a fish drinking water, knowing whether it was cold or warm. Like the words he said to me in his last class, many twists and turns were actually a rejection. Blame him for being ambiguous, blame me for being foolish. Like his lick. Who would care what the identity is? The romance I never had the courage to imagine was all left to others by the male protagonist. That was her female protagonist, what did it have to do with me? As for the courage to be a lover that was taken away from me, that was nothing. Like me, it was a self-righteousness, a supporting role, an outlier's outlier. It's still a matter of winners and losers in love. Like my story, it's just a joke not worth mentioning, that's all.